Hello and welcome to this presentation. I'm Dr Burrow and I'm going to help you make excellent notes on My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. I'd like you to pause whenever you need to or when I tell you to so that you can make these notes. You also need a copy of the poem to annotate. You'll find it on page 30 of your anthology. It's quite a long poem, so it's page 30 and 31. Let's get going. So, things you need to know about this poem. It's a dramatic monologue, and this is a form that Browning is credited with inventing. It's a story told by one person to an unknown listener. In this case, it's an envoy who's come to talk to the Duke about a potential new wife. The envoy doesn't speak, so the listener to the poem, i.e. you, is situated as the envoy. So you find yourself listening to the Duke explaining about his last wife as he takes you on a wander around his home. We get a very vivid impression, because of this, we get a really vivid impression of who the Duke is and what he's like. And it's interesting that Browning creates a real character and setting effectively. He was writing in the 19th century, mid-19th century, and he wanted to be a playwright initially. He wasn't successful at that. He was much more successful as a poet. And what this means is that what he does is he creates a real strong character and he tells a story in these poems. So you can imagine that these poems, that this character really does exist, or you can imagine at least this character, an actor delivering these lines, okay? So he's created this really, really gripping character, and what he does as well is he sets this in the past, in the quite distant past in Italy, and it allows him to explore issues that were prevalent in the 19th century England without causing any offence. He thinks about the nature of power and tyranny, morality, good and evil and beauty, and what he's doing is he's using history to explore this human morality and key ideas that were prevalent in 19th century England. So now what I'd like you to do is pause and listen to Ralph Cotterill reading the poem to you. You can follow the link to do it. As you listen to this, think about the character Browning's created and the setting. How does he create a sense of place and time? And it's interesting that this poem is told in real time, so as you listen to the poem, what's happening is actually happening, if that makes sense. There's no gaps in time here. It's him guiding somebody around his castle and talking to them. So pause now and listen to the poem. Welcome back. What I'm going to ask you now to do in a moment is to follow this link to watch Mr. Bland reading, annotating and talking about this poem. Before you do that, I've got two pictures on the screen, and it's really interesting that a lot of this poem obviously is a poem about a painting, and I always use the painting of the Duchess that you can see on the left here when creating PowerPoints and things about the poem. And this time I thought I'd include a painting of the Duke because it's him talking to you, so it should help you to imagine this man, because this is a story based on, or people believe it's a story based on, actual events, that this young woman who married the Duke when she was 14, she was a Medici, who was a really powerful family in Florence, and she married the Duke of Ferrara at 14 and then died in unusual circumstances, or suspicious circumstances, 2 years later. And people think that Browning has used this because he had an interest in murder and mystery and the nature of power and what was going on in the world. So pause now and listen to Mr. Bland annotating the poem. And he talks about the poem, he gives you a little bit of context for it, he reads it to you and then he annotates it. And you'll need to pause lots as you listen to this so that you can annotate your poem along with him, because he's really brilliant in this. Welcome back. The next thing that I'd like you to do is to spend 20 minutes on this. And it's how many points can you accumulate in 20 minutes? And I'm asking you to use short direct quotations to extend your idea. So you're thinking about these boxes. And there are 12 boxes in 4 different colours. So the pink ones are all about the meaning of the poem. The blue ones are about the context for the poem. The yellow ones about the structure for the poem. And the slightly green ones, which are really hard to, slightly hard to differentiate from the blue ones in the box at the bottom, are about the language of the poem. So what sort of words is Browning using? So I'd like you to spend 20 minutes answering as many questions as you can. I'd say start with one from each colour first, so you've answered on meaning, context, structure and language, and then once you've done those 4, expand and see how many more you can do. And I'd say challenge yourself. If you're not really very comfortable writing about the structure, then do the 3 yellow boxes. Okay, so really challenge yourself. Well done and welcome back. If you really want to push yourself further, if you're thinking that you'd like to study literature at A level, or you're just thinking, I want to get a really, really good grade in English, or I want to understand what Browning was up to in this poem, take yourself to Massalit. There are lots and lots of lectures by an academic in Cambridge, I think, on My Last Duchess. They're really straightforward and clear, but it will take you up to the next level of analysis, okay? So much more detail about My Last Duchess. And that's all I have to say for you, but good luck, enjoy the poem, and thank you for listening.